What up, world? Happy Monday. Welcome to another episode of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast, 32 teams in 32 days. I am your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the sunny and humid confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast not only here on YouTube, but you can check the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast out on Spotify, Substack, Patreon, Trovo, and as well as on Podbean. Don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Thanks. Happy to be here with you on this beautiful Monday, July 7th, 2025. We're going to be going over again the 32 teams and 32 days segment. I gave you guys a couple of days off due to the holiday. I hope all of you were safe and sound after that beautiful 4th of July. My wife and my kids and I had a great one. I hope you guys did too. Nonetheless, going to hop right back into the segment. Full swing of things. We're going to be covering the Giants and Patriots today and go over their offseason outlooks and plans going into 2025. But before we do, we always want to make sure we give a shout out to a couple friends of the show before we get started. First and foremost, if you are an avid gamer like myself, you're big into gaming. We all know Madden's coming out. Saquon's on the cover. Big year with all the additions and features they've added to Madden. I would definitely implore you to check the description box for a link within the video. It will be to PlayStation Home Direct. If you're looking for controllers, remotes, cameras, accessories, new systems, games, whatever it is, Sony PlayStation Direct has it. Sony PlayStation, more than a game. Looking to get out this weekend, looking to take your spouse out, have a great time with some friends, then look no further than the #1 leading ticket seller and reseller in the world, StubHub. #1 seller in the world for live events, tickets, shows, and concerts, StubHub. All right, guys, so going into this episode, like I said, recapping 32 teams in 32 days, we're going to be covering obviously, I've told you in the previous episode, we're going worst to first. So we're on the third and fourth teams that were in the draft order. That would be the New York Giants and the New England Patriots. First, covering the New York Giants because they were the third place team in the draft. What a fucking disaster for the New York Giants this past season. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, obviously, the departure of Saquon Barkley and all the hoopla that came with that, and the Hard Knocks video, and John Mara pretty much saying, he's going to not lose sleep if, Saquon goes to Philadelphia. That right there in itself was a punchline and a meme throughout the whole year. But then when the games got played, the team became a punchline and a meme. 3-14, not great by any way, stretch, or form. Very fucking horrible. So much to the point where the owner at the end of the offseason, John Mara, stated that he is running out of time and patience. Why you would bring the guys back, if you feel that way, I have no idea. But that's the way things are. That's the way he feels. He's the owner. He can state that. That being said, very, very precarious situation for this team to be in. None of us are used to seeing the Giants this bad. But let's not bullshit ourselves. They've been a dysfunctional franchise since their last Super Bowl victory. I mean, they've been inconsistent as far as making the playoffs, struggled to maintain relevancy within the NFC East. They've become a doormat. So it's become a situation where I completely understand where John Mara is coming from. I personally probably would have fired, Briandaboll and Joe Shane, but it is what it is. You can't, I guess you figured, you don't want to become the dysfunctional franchise or be known as the owner that makes dysfunctional moves, but you've been that for 11 years. So I don't know what, delusion people are under sometimes. But nonetheless, going into their offseason moves, I'm obviously having a terrible year like that. Their #1 draft pick, they draft 3rd overall, Abdul Carter, amazing edge rusher out of Penn State. Looks like he could be one of the next great defensive players in the league. Who knows? We'll see how everything plays out. But nonetheless, Abdul Carter was drafted in that spot. In the offseason, we all knew quarterback play was an issue for the Giants throughout all of last year. Going into the offseason this year, they get Russell Wilson. They get Jameiswinston. They get Jaxsondart through the draft. I believe he was somewhere between 24 and 26. But nonetheless, he gets drafted in the mid to late 20s. Signaling to the fan base and to the team that they're trying to be serious about the quarterback situation. I think for all intents and purposes, if the interview process probably hadn't went very shitty with Shedeur, they probably would have drafted Shedeur Sanders in that spot. That being said, the pressure is on Briandaboll and defensive coordinator Shane Bowen to fix this team. From the owner down to the coach and GM, that issue being the edict being issued of running out of patience and running out of time, that's for the whole staff. They know this. So this is a make or break season for them. They really have to improve and show massive improvement to possibly keep their jobs. Now, you're talking about needs for this team. Obviously, having 3 wins, you have a litany of them. But the team needs more offensive firepower. And they need more help along the offensive and defensive lines. I think that goes without saying. Their offensive line has been a fucking turnstile. And if any of you have been in the New York City subways or the subways up top, you already know that those fucking turnstiles are consistently moving. They can lock on you. And when they lock, they're good. They're good. But in reference to the Giants' offensive line, they are no turnstile. They are worse than a turnstile. They are literally, one of the worst offensive lines within the past 5 years in football. And defense, I will give the Giants defense credit. Their defensive line has improved tremendously. When you think about the pass rush, you think about Dexter Lawrence there being in the middle, cornerstone piece for them. They have Brian Burns that they acquired via trade at the linebacker position. They have guys in certain spots. They just don't have the full team yet, and this is what is essentially has cost them in the NFC and in the NFC East. Looking at offensive rankings here, pretty shitty. 31st in points, which is just fucking horrible. 30th in yards, and then, which is really a true indicator right here. It should give you anything. They were 28th in passing yards, and all these stats are via Pro Football Reference. I will have a link in the description for you to check it out for yourself. But yes, very fucking horrible offense. There's no way in hell that is a competent NFL offense. You can't throw the ball. You can't move the ball. And then rushing wise, you can't really run the ball. You were 25th in attempts, 23rd in yards. Shout out to Tyrone Tracy. I do think he's a good running back. However, the commitment, defensively, you knew what they were doing. You could just take it away. So offense was garbage. Just moribund to say the least. Defensive ranking, 21st in points, garbage, middle of the pack. 24th in yards, garbage, not good. Now, there was one strong suit for this defense. They were 8th in passing yards. I do believe that's something that can consistently get better for them, especially this year, especially if the pass rush is there. I think their defensive backfield will be better. But rushing the football was not as bad as I thought also as well. Like I said, I previously stated the defensive line was pretty good. But them running the ball, even without Saquon being there, Tyrone Tracy did hold up. He had 192 attempts. 839 rushing yards, and he averaged 4.4 yards per attempt. 5 touchdowns on the season. Not bad. But when you're the guy that you let go goes has a 2,000-yard season and wins the Super Bowl, people don't really factor that really in too much. So, in the rush offense, they were 23rd. In the rush defense, they were 27th. So this, again, very indicative. The Giants have a lot of holes. They have a lot of things they need to fix. Before they're really a contending team and really valuable again, they really have to make sure they got playmakers. They don't have playmakers on this roster. And I think it's the first time in my lifetime, and I'll be 37 on the 28th of this month. That's the first time in my lifetime I can honestly say the Giants were just devoid of playmakers. Very, very stark times in New York City. As far as a goal, wins, as far as total wins for the season for the Giants, I would say, honestly, a best case scenario, 6 to 8 wins. You can get somewhere between 6 and 8. I think that saves their jobs. I think if you can win 9 games, that's a clear line of demarcation. That definitely saves the GM and the coach's job. However, if they win the same amount of games that they won this past season, they're getting fired. So pressure is on in New York. The G-men are definitely going to have to show improve. And before I end that segment on the Giants, I will say, I don't think Russell Wilson lasts the whole season as a starting quarterback. I do think Jaxsondart does have to come in the middle at some point. I think they're going to let Russell, because Russ and Jameis are the vets, I think they're going to allow them to get their burn. But ultimately, I think Jaxsondart is going to have they're going to have a quicker opportunity to bring him in as a starter than most people think. Next, we're going to go to the New England Patriots, who were 4th in the draft last year. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. The New England Patriots have, let's just say, when you lose arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, and you lose the greatest coach of all time, and things did not end on a ceremonious, note, or a very good note, you're just hoping the next year that the team is just valuable. viable and just, competent. That was not the New England Patriots last year. They went 4-13. Coach Gerard Mayo, who is now fired, last year was going into last year trying to temper expectations, have this team prepare for next year, prepare for last season, and competent and at least competitive. That was not the case at all. They went 4-13, fourth in the AFC East. Very, very bad season. Gerard Mayo fired. Kind of thought that the Kraft family was going to possibly give him another year. That did not work. That did not play out the way that we thought it was. And then obviously Mike Vrabel becoming available as a head coach, that definitely changed things for the New England Patriots. And I think they had to do due diligence and just, kick the tires to see if Vrabel would even be interested. He was. So kudos to the Patriots for that. Just didn't like how Gerard Mayo was fired. It was just, and credit to Tom Curran of, of Boston Sports Media. He stated throughout this whole process that Gerard Mayo didn't really convey messages well enough for the staff and for the team. And ultimately, he just didn't do enough to retain the job. It wasn't great how he was fired, but nonetheless, when you don't do the job correctly, these things do come to fruition. You being fired, that is. So Mike Vrabel comes in. So you got old face, new place. Well, essentially, like I said, in the draft, did the right thing in my personal opinion. You drafted left tackle Will Campbell out of LSU as their number one pick. You needed offensive line help because you got Drake May now as your quarterback. That was the one bright spot last year. You did get him to play 10 games. He's the one bright spot on offense. He shows his mobilities. He can throw the ball. He's got charisma. He's got attitude. He's got character. That's all things that you like and see in a young quarterback. Ultimately, though, they spent money in free agency, which was another thing because this was another team that was devoid of playmakers. Like, very bad offense, very bad defense. I'll get into the stats, but I think it's, needless to say, the Patriots were just a very bad team last year. Spent money on Stefondiggs in free agency. Spent money on Milton Williams from the Philadelphia Eagles. Spent money, traded for Harold Landry from the Tennessee Titans. Previous experience with Vrabel being the head coach there in Tennessee. So, solid veterans. Excuse me. Solid veterans. Guys that that are going to come in and play well, do the job, set the template for the younger guys. And I think getting Stefondiggs automatically helps your wide receiver room because let's not bullshit ourselves. The New England Patriots have not had a fucking wide receiver since Julian Edelman left. And Edelman was a shell of himself his final year in the league, banged up from injuries. So to see that they finally spent some type of capital, whether free agency or trade or draft, to get an actual good wide receiver, and I know they grabbed the kid Polk out of Washington State. We will see. Jalen Polk has not really developed into the role that they thought he was going to develop in. They have other guys that are on the roster they're hoping to develop, but essentially getting Stefondiggs makes this wide receiver room better. He's a guy, and clearly he showed, coming off the injury, he's got his mobility back, he's got his snap back in his knees, which is what's going to be needed for Drake May to even be at an efficient or top level in the AFC, let alone the league. Again, needed playmakers, and they're in a situation where they're going to need their young playmakers that they just drafted last year and the year prior to play well and quickly so that way they don't climb into a hole early on, because make no mistake, their schedule is one of the harder schedules in the league coming into this season. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're 1-3, 1-4, and you kind of just feel like you're sinking and you're only a month and a half, 2 months into the season. Long season, yes, but nonetheless, it's still a lot to try to overcome early on. So they're going to need their young guys to step up, clearly. And the passing game definitely has to be better. If we're looking here at the numbers, offensive ranking, you were 30th in points. Not good. 31st in yards, not good. And fucking terrible in 32nd in passing yards. So definitely had a young quarterback. Definitely had a situation where, guy had to earn his medal. Now, keep in mind, he only played 10 games. The previous games were played by Jacoby Brissett and a mix of him and Bailey Zappi, and just shitty. The quarterback play just wasn't good early on in the season. That's what's kind of sunk those numbers. Drake May, however, did show a lot of promise in that quarterback spot. Defensive rankings, pretty sad too. You have 22nd in points, 22nd in yards. However, they were 10th in pass yards. So I do think that's something that can get better. especially with getting miltonwilliams, especially with adding some of the defensive players that they added, haroldlandry, for example. Their defensive line should be better, should be a little bit more tenacious and aggressive than what they've been the past 2 years. So I think the pass defense definitely could continue to go up. As far as rushing offense is concerned, here's where things are crazy. They ran the ball decently last year. The New England Patriots were 13th in rushing yards. That is nothing to sneeze at, especially when you have a quarterback play that was struggling as bad as it was early in the year. So they can run the ball. I think they do have a moderate or decent rushing attack. However, if you're looking at the rush defense, 23rd in yards, which is fucking garbage. Clearly, rush defense is nowhere near where it needs to be. I think with Mike Vrabel coming in with the additions of free agency, this team should improve. The defense, obviously, they must take a step forward for this team to be better in any way, shape, or form. So, with all that said, what is my best case scenario for the New England Patriots? It is the same as I have for the New York Giants. 6 to 8 wins, possibly 9 to compete for a wild card, because Mike Vrabel's teams do seem to be prepared, well, a little bit more prepared than what you would expect, especially that first season he had in Tennessee. I do think that this team is going to be mentally ready. I don't think they're going to be emotionally ready for a lot of these situation scenarios. So to be fair, I'll put their best case scenario at 6 to 8 wins. You don't have to worry about Vrabel getting fired or anything like that, because if they don't have a great year, they're going to make massive change on the team anyway. So what it basically boils down to is 6 to 8 wins, possibly 9, and a wild card spot for the New England Patriots to have a better outlook for their 2025-2026 season. That's going to do it for this episode, guys. As always, I love you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Take care, stay cool out there, and enjoy the rest of your day. Hey to all my fans and subscribers out in the UK. Looking to get out this weekend, looking to make something of your week, then look no further than the Viagogo, the #2 leading ticket seller in the world for live events, shows, and concerts. Definitely check it out. If you're looking for exclusive tickets, look in the description of my videos on the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. Take care and enjoy your day.